Moto G96 5G.
All eyes on you.
Hello, Moto.
मंगलदीप, दिल से करो बात भगवान के साथ।
मंगलदीप धूप कोन्स 2 गुनी खुशबू के साथ दे पूजा का बेहतर अनुभव।
जब मुंबई से वापस कोल्हापुर शिफ्ट हुआ तो सबने कहा कि ड्रीम सिटी को छोड़ रहा है। ड्रीम सिटी, मैंने कहा ड्रीम में तो यही गलियां आती। तो जब ये रियलाइज हुआ कि कुछ बड़ा करने के लिए बड़े शहर में रहने की जरूरत नहीं, तब लगा कि लाइफ में ग्रो किया।
SIP करो, इन्वेस्ट करो, लाइफ में ग्रो करो।
प्रतिभूति बाजार में निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। निवेश करने से पहले सभी संबंधित
various numbers are doing the round. Does your poll suggest that, as well as the fact that Indians will stand by India at a moment of crisis, that both these sentiments are playing parallelly?
So public is very clear. They know that the economic distress is there. The stress is there. They know what kind of tariffs are going to hit them. It's not that they do not know. They understand. Yet they want you to stand up to the bully. So see, Donald Trump is a weird phenomena. It hit India twice, particularly to the ruling dispensation. You know, with the one tweet about ceasefire, it took the entire pro-narrative go down as far as the narrative around ceasefire is concerned.
The facts
you
of
know,
ceasefire.
so Sindoor, which was supposed to help in a narrative way to the BJP and the NDA, it did not. You know, that's a fact. But what was not supposed to help the BJP and the NDA was the tariff, but it is helping because standing up to the bully is what people are appreciating. Okay. So that's the one point. One more thing, one data point, which is beyond the MOTN in our PSC, where we did the tracking
PSC
during the political stock exchange during the Operation Sindoor. Preeti, you remember when we asked whom should we trust more?
When the financial pinch comes at the back of these tariffs, one of the main core contention has been with every time you do the surveys, unemployment. It's always on top of the people's
And
mind.
that is exactly
that
what America is
will
trying.
pinch.
And, you know,
So
if
you
I
have
feel
to
like
come
right
up,
up the ante,
you have to come up with economic policies to absorb
You made that point, Preeti. Go ahead,
if they try to up the ante, and America may just do that with the H-1B visas. So every adversity is an opportunity, and that's exactly what India has capitalized on even in the past. That's the point, that America has not wargamed when they went ahead with this. Look, America made Japan kowtow to it. America made South Korea. Those are treaty allies of the United States of America. European Union had to buckle under pressure. And now Japan is walking back
because they don't know what these guys want.
Because they've seen India stand tall. They're seeing India stand tall to American bullying. And so this is where India plays a much bigger role on the world
Let's get one or two more voices in. One of our questions also was, and this is linked again to a sense of national sentiment over this, is India buying Russian oil in its national interest? Now, many believe that this has led to profiteering, of course, of a few corporates close to the government. But what do people say? Yes, say 69%. India should continue to buy Russian oil. It's in its national interest. No, say 16%. Given these numbers, Shankar Iyer, there's a wave of nationalism that says that we've got to stand up to the bully, and America is seen as the big bully. There are others, and the first question becomes relevant in that, who are also worried about or anxious about Trump's high tariffs. How do you see this play out? Sovereignty on one side versus policy making on the other?
Well, nobody has ever accused the Americans of knowing history or geography very well. So let's sort of move away from their contention. Donald Trump was looking for a geopolitical deal. Where India messed up is that they were focused on a trade deal. So the Ukraine war is the albatross that is hanging around the Western world. Now, the reason why Korea or others kowtowed did what they want, because their defense budget is funded by the American money. EU agreed to whatever was to be agreed because of that. But they've also done a bit of sleight of hand. Japan is supposed to invest $600 billion, no details available. EU is supposed to invest $500 billion, no details available. So the bottom line is there is no MRP or maximum retail price when you're negotiating with a bully or a transactional person. There is no doubt that Americans understand India's compulsions, but they're just trying to see whether they can break the will. The point here is, what are your options? So the Prime Minister is now going to Japan. He's meeting people in China. which is another relationship which is fraught with some issues. So India's only answer in the long run would be to fix the issues of its domestic economy, about employment, about skilling, about funding. I mean, India wants to export to the world. How many banks in India are willing to go and fund exports abroad? What is the kind of depth that you have? Now, India will have to create policies to help those affected by the tariffs. Do you have the depth in the fiscal to do that? So you'll have to
which
raise
comes to the point I'm making, that this is not just about rhetoric, this has to also become now about policy making. There's an important GST meeting, for example, in a few days from now. The government is going to have to get its act together. This is a wake-up call. Arun Kumar, when I look at those numbers on Russian oil, I've heard a lot of people saying, maybe we should do a cost-benefit analysis. I had Raghuram Rajan on the show. He says it's time to do a proper cost-benefit. How much has Indian consumer really gained? How much have private companies gained? How much have we as a country gained by buying cheap Russian oil? Do you believe these are all valid questions to raise at the moment? Because there will be those who say we are not buckling like Gaurav Sawant under any kind of pressure from the Americans. We are going to continue, even though silently, quietly, we have reduced our dependence on Russian oil just in the last couple of months. We don't want to make a noise about it. That's the only difference.
So, Rajdeep, you're right. We have to look at the big picture and then come to the specifics. The big picture is that we didn't start the tariff war. Before Trump came, our average tariffs was 17%, US tariffs were 3%, So what Trump is doing is imposing actually protectionist tariffs. These are not reciprocal tariffs. At best, the reciprocal tariff should have been 14% because that was the difference between them and us. But what he's doing is he's trying to bring jobs back to the US. Now, that's not going to happen because US wages are very high compared to what India and China has to offer. So, what an Indian worker earns in 2 months is earned by an American auto worker in 1 day. So therefore, it's not going to happen that, all the production is going to go back to the US, etc. So I think very quickly, what you'll see is stagflationary conditions rise in the USA. And that will actually create problem within the US for the US economy and for Trump. The trifactor that is helping Trump in terms of the judiciary, the legislature, and the presidency, that is under threat in the coming elections next year. Now, if the trifactor goes, US may not be able to continue with the imposition of the tariffs that are there at the moment because it's the power of the Congress.
But that's a year from now, Professor Arun Kumar, that's a year from now. The elections are November next year. The fact is, at the moment, you support the general national mood seems to be stand up to the bully. Do you believe that's the right stand?
Yeah, so we've been, as you rightly say, we've been quietly actually buckling under. For instance, during the budget also, we reduced tariffs, we've increased the import of energy, we are increasing defense expense, etc. But that's not going to satisfy Trump. Therefore, what do? We need to actually, as Preeti and others have said, we need to actually look at the internal economy and boost the internal economy, especially the unemployment situation, because that is where I think the mood of the nation would switch. Because if this continues with a lot of unemployment increasing, and especially also with H1 visa and the green card, etc., all that creating a climate of a despondency among the youth, then I think the situation would change. So I think very quickly the government needs to increase the demand within the economy. That will not benefit the exporters because the GST is not what is going to help them, but the general demand might increase and investment might increase.
I have been hearing that for the last couple of years with due regard, Professor Arun Kumar, and no one disagrees. We need to stimulate demand. I'm just seeing a poll, your cover of Business today. Business confidence is at an all-time low for 11 quarters. Domestic demand is tepid. Many Indian big business are not investing in the big projects. All of this was talked about in the last budget, but it's not translating on the ground. Is this a wake-up call in that sense?
And the BT C4 survey that you refer to was conducted with around 500 plus CEOs in the time frame of July 10 to 25. I just want to make one point. This survey, particularly the latter part of it, comes after the 2 rounds of US tariffs. The first US tariff kicked in on 30th July, the second one kicked in a week later. Now, given that, what is very clear, Rajdeep, at the top end, there is nervousness of grim tidings.
Right.
And at the mass level, which this survey captures, there is nervousness. One quick point, Rajdeep, and why we are missing the point. Let's not forget that India buckled in once, and that memory perhaps is guiding our stance now. In May 2019, we stopped buying Venezuelan and Iranian oil. One more quick
But
point.
that time there were sanctions,
Gaurav,
this time there are no sanctions.
Let me complete that point.
Yes.
We did that. And why there is no trust of the US stance is evidenced by that. The second thing, it's 3 years plus and counting. Petrol, diesel prices have remained frozen. They have not increased. There have in fact been some adjustments.
They have not decreased either.
No,
not substantially.
There has been an adjustment.
Not substantially.
No, just one final point.
The benefit has not passed on to the consumer. Had the benefit been passed on to the consumer, the same consumer would have perhaps cheered for.
Let me just finish the point. In regard to the survey and the question on Russian oil, all I'm saying is, I guarantee that all these respondents, 200,000 plus respondents, no one knows the color of the oil when it is filled in his motorcycle, or whether it is Russian oil, whether it is some other Gulf oil. They don't care about it. What they are caring about is, are you standing up to the bully who has mistreated you in the past? In the past, you agreed with his stance.
Just a moment, because there are two more important points. They're linked to this. The survey has also asked opinion on India-China engaging more closely. Remember, Prime Minister goes to the SCO to China in a few days from now.
Today.
Strengthens India's position globally, 52%. India-China engage more closely, strengthen. Look at how the world is changing. The same China that was seen to be fused with the Pakistan military during Operation Sindoor weakens India's security interests, 26%, no significant impact, 13%. Maria has already given the numbers. If US increases support to Pakistan, how should India respond? Strengthens ties with other allies like Russia, 59%. Increased military readiness, 29%. Seek dialogue with Pakistan, 6%. But Gaurav Samant, till the other day you were calling China the big enemy, that we have to take on the Chinese. Now we are about to go and embrace the Chinese. I hope we are not going on a jhula again, but the fact is we are going to China and we are embracing them, and the public is saying, yes, this will strengthen our position globally. So now you see America as the big bully, and our enemy in the neighborhood we want to embrace. How do you describe?
Enemy is always a friend.
But enemy's enemy, China is having its own relationship being built with the Trump administration on the other hand.
That's exactly, Rajdeep, where you see the global Chakravyuh, things are changing so fast across the world.
Gaurav Samant is changing fast. No longer you see China as the main enemy.
My show is India First, and I always look at Indian interests first.
So India First is now tying up, moving closer to China in your view?
In case China...
Moving closer to Putin in your view?
Putin always. Russia always.
Okay.
Russia has always been... Look, a friend in need is a friend indeed.
Okay.
Right? Russians have been close to India throughout. Since our independence, since Indira Gandhi's 1971 operations, since Kargil War of 1999. So India-Russia relationship has withstood the test of time. China, Wang Yi came to India. Wang Yi, the Chinese foreign minister and member of Politburo, he made it very clear, Rajdeep, that they have realized that animosity with India was not in the interest of the two people.
4 months ago, the Chinese were fully fused.
That's a reality. That's a reality you have to live with. So, permit me to finish my point.
Yes.
The point is, world equation is changing. It's a changing geopolitical equation. You have to see Bharat ka fayda. Where do you get the maximum interest?
Real politics.
Real politics. No,
your survey also shows that.
Survey shows that public is very
Public
clear.
has no problem with if you deal with China
I tell you,
anymore.
public is very clear. Number one, institutional memory of public about Russia-India friendship is very high, very well. And I was taken to a surprise because 80% of Indian electorate right now was born after the 71 war.
Yes.
And after the treaty,
I was
Soviet
thinking
treaty.
this would not be in the public memory, but it was, number one. Number two,
China?
during the Sindoor in the PSC, Priti, you remember, we even asked about China and the Pakistan. During the conflict, majority of the Indians said, Pakistan hai nahi ladai mein, it is actually the China whom we are fighting.
Correct.
It is a single front. So as far as public is concerned, public is like, you know, earlier
No, but now 52% are saying we should engage with China.
Let me finish.
52% are saying engage with China. The same country which was striking us during Sindoor.
Let me finish. Earlier, these kind of discussions were limited to studios and the experts of the diplomacy and the and other fields. Now, the common man on the street is very clear. China remains an adversary. Okay? Russia remains a friend. America remains something which we have to be extremely careful about. We are not comfortable. as long as, just like Gaurav said, as long as on the India First policy, if it happens to be that we shake hand with China in order to stand up to bully right now, people are okay with that. That doesn't mean people are saying trust China.
Okay.
Hell no.
Rajdeep,
Do not trust
yes,
China.
Preeti and then Maria, go ahead.
Yeah.
You know, I actually,
And then Pranav.
you know, Rajdeep, the fact is with all the categories that Yashwant just named, the line gets blurred somewhere, and I'll tell you when it gets blurred. Because you had Siddharth who says, somebody who's getting fuel filled in their motorcycle doesn't quite care whether it's coming from Russia or any other country, but they are, you know, pleased with the fact that we are looking a bully in the eye. We often forget of the last man standing in the queue. And that person reminded us in the last 2024 election who she or he is. And I'll give you an example there. Because have this conversation 3 months from now, if there is a trickle-down effect to a person who's on a dhyadi basis in a textile unit in Banaras or in Karnal. When they are laid off, they don't care whether we are looking at somebody in the eye. They are bothered that their dhyadi for the day is not coming. So therefore, we need economic policy. One second. Let me finish my point.
The 80 crore people that India feeds, the 80 crore people that India has fed out of your tax and my tax and her tax, that money is our civilizational ethos. The last man in the line should be fed.
Can I counter that? I will counter that. Allow me to counter that.
Instead of buying Make in America or Made in Europe, when she buys more Made in India, when you and I buy more Made in India, it helps the last man.
Yes, very quickly, let Preeti respond. Quickly.
You know, let me just give you an example, right? I will hark back to 2024 elections in UP, especially in Eastern UP. What was one of the main, which was, you know, which only I would think the ground reporters tapped on. Galla mil raha hai. Galla is free ration. Galla mil raha hai, naukri nahi hai. The minute that naukri goes, you can, you know, what are you going to do with Swadeshi? Yeah, she can't or he can't afford like 2 square meals a day.
That's where every Indian needs to come forward.
We need policies. We need to look the bully in the eye. But look the bully in the eye. Come up with strong economic policies.
We can't keep breastfeeding and say, hi, I'm fit guy. We have to fight the bully in every which way.
Let's not shout at each other. Let's talk to each other. The fact at the end of the day is if I'm losing my job in a toy factory or a small garments factory, I'm not interested in looking the bully in the eye as much as how will I get my job at the earliest. In that sense, Pranav, in that sense, you track diplomacy. Are diplomats and those in government aware, diplomats in particular, aware that, you know, looking at the US, the bully in the eye may look very good, may grab you headlines, Swadeshi 2.0. It's going to have to translate into reality on the ground in ensuring that jobs are protected.
Absolutely.
Are they aware of that?
They are aware about this.
That you can't allow the rhetoric to spiral out of control.
No, look, it's not about rhetoric. It's not about rhetoric.
We are talking Swadeshi 2.0. I'm hearing an Aam Aadmi Party MLA say, I'm going to boycott all US products.
But that is one forget about the rhetoric. But this country was much poorer when we stood up against the mightiest British Empire. Much poorer than this situation. Having said that, this remains a concern. Take the example, we also have to take it into account that the states which are going to get impacted by these tariff sanctions, Andhra Pradesh, take the example of Andhra Pradesh, which is governed by Chandrababu Naidu.
With a lot of shrimp export.
Shrimp doesn't have the shelf life like of textile or jewelry. It is very perishable commodity. Around 32% of our export, shrimp export, goes to United States. It is going to get impacted. This is worth about $2 billion. This will impact us. That's why Prime Minister said that I am going to stand for my small farmers, my fishermen. This has to be protected.
How? The question is how. You see, I come back to it. Just a minute, sir.
No, we have
the reason I'll tell you why.
Is it being targeted against those states which can be politically sensitive?
Okay, Pranav, the question is asked, and that's why this becomes important. Maria, please dive in. NDA's handling of the economy. The MOTN poll has asked that. In August 2025, 47.8% are saying it's good. Average is 16.4%. Poor is 30.2%. So if I look at average and poor, roughly it's around the same. Half say it's good, half say it's average and poor. It's a split verdict. Unemployment situation, that's where the real problem comes. MOTN August 2025 says very serious is 50.7. Somewhat serious is 20.8. Add the two, it's coming to a whopping 72%. Not concerned is only 10.6. Not very serious is 6.7. Not at all serious is 5.04. So therefore, when you look at the one big negative that the government is facing at the moment, it's unemployment. On the back of it, when tariffs come in, you're going to have to find solutions in a reasonable time frame. Is there a concern, therefore, when you look at these numbers, that this is going to be the big challenge for the government. Yes, people are with the national flag. Yes, they want us to stand up to the bully. Yes, they are willing to even have better relations with China, but not at the cost of losing my naukri.
Absolutely. Rajdeep, look, this has to be juxtaposed with what most people are saying, that 61%, a very high percentage, saying that there should be no compromise whatsoever, continue to negotiate. And that is where I think the Prime Minister's words come in, where he said, even at the personal cost, I will ensure that I will protect the interests of the agriculture, the farmers, and also the MSMEs. I think that's where the government's communication, and I will go back to the point that I made, is more effective on this, where there is almost near unanimity that Prime Minister Modi's political will has been displayed. He stands firm for India and the Indian interest.
Therefore, Shankar Iyer, very quickly, how do you translate the narrative of standing up to the bully to ensuring that the unemployment situation doesn't slip out of control? It's where you've always spoken about regulatory cholesterol. Does it now go beyond that? Now there's a wake-up call that we need answers now. It can't be pushed into the future. Ease of doing business committee bana denge, wo ab nahi chalega.
Well, just on a lighter note, this poll will send the WhatsApp world universe into a tizzy, because last year they were doing Havan for Donald Trump and boycotting Chinese goods. This year they will have to do Havan for Chinese goods and boycott Donald Trump. So the whole world will go around this way. But, you know, the point is that if you take the last 3 budgets and the announcements that were made, they promised 20,000 crores for R&D in the private sector. Money is yet to be disbursed because they don't know how to disburse the money. An urban challenge fund of 1 lakh crore has been set up, which is still not finalized. The Niti Aayog was supposed to release, what is the whole tariff, domestic economy, regulatory cholesterol about? You should spur competition among states. Why is Tamil Nadu getting all the investment, doing better? Because they're doing something right. So other states need to do that. Investment conferences are held all over the country, you know, magnetic Maharashtra, kinetic Karnataka, all that stuff. Nobody knows how much investment has come or whether it's translated. Let's do an audit. The Niti Aayog has the bandwidth to do this audit, but obviously there is a political cost to doing this audit, so they have not done. So why not take a proactive thing? Why not have a chief minister's conference where they come up and say, I am going to slash these regulations. This is the time. I am going to allow these kind of investments. This is the time-bound program. I have adopted these policies. Let's not wait for another committee, another task force,
Point taken. We have a big GST Council meeting coming up on September 3. We'll see what happens there. But Arun Kumar, very quickly, do you believe that this unemployment situation, therefore, juxtaposed against this surge of nationalism led by Gaurav Sawant here, he didn't do a Havan, I'm told, when he necessarily didn't do a Havan for Donald Trump, but this surge of nationalism, that we're not going to bow down to American pressure, but at the same time, the pressure will have real effects. Quick response. Time to get our act together.
So politics can always trump economics. You know, there is no doubt about that. In India, we've seen that again and again after demonetization, etc. But as Siddharth was saying, the problem is demand. If industry doesn't have enough demand, investment would suffer. And because the sentiment has gone down in industry, at the moment, investment would suffer further. Now, how do you get investment up? For that, you need to generate demand in the unorganized sector, which is 94% of the employment. So you need to have higher incomes in agriculture. You need to have higher incomes in the micro sector, which employs 11.5 crore people. If you can generate demand with this 11.5 crore micro sector and another 11 crore farmers, then you have a big demand coming up. Unfortunately, GST rate cut will not do that because bulk of the GST is paid by the organized sector. As Arun Jaitley used to say, 5% units pay 95% of the tax. So if you cut the GST rates, it'll benefit the organized sector, but not necessarily the unorganized sector. Similarly, the income tax rate cut, which is expected to boost demand, actually the benefit will go about 3 crore individuals out of 145 crore. That is inadequate to generate demand at the lower levels. So what you need to do is push demand at the lower levels, then you'll have, the organized sector also investing more, because the organized sector balance sheets are very good. They have large amount of money, but because of lack of demand, they're not investing enough. So therefore, it's a win-win situation if you go for the unorganized sector, the small, medium, and the agriculture sector. If you go for them, I think you'll have a recovery.
Very quickly,
Rajdeep, this is not as serious as an economic problem as we saw during the worst period of COVID. You saw the government respond to that with a multitude of programs. We've been reporting over the last several days that there is work underway in the government, different departments talking about a response that includes support for the export sector, and there more will roll out. And I just want to say, if we go by the last 6 months, it was not as if the government of India has been caught napping. Because of all the steps that have been taken, yes, a lot more work needs to be done on some of the budget announcements. But I would end by saying, Rajdeep, it is time that the states also step up. If a West Bengal says that no, this GST cut will be revenue negative, then that is not part of a national strategy. This is the stage where everyone cutting across party lines and state and center have to come together.
One final minute that you have, Yashwant Deshmukh, and this is your poll. Overall, at the end of this first round of the Mood of the Nation, can we say the Narendra Modi-led BJP NDA remains politically dominant, electorally dominant, but the economic clouds looming make this are a wake-up call? Complacency, particularly ahead of our next Mood of the Nation, is no longer an answer. Now you're going to need solutions. Time is running out.
I think complacency is no way, in any case, it can be a solution. I mean, it's not like that.
Because I'm winning elections, I feel I'm complacent.
And I also
I'll get away by winning an election.
And I also kind of feel for something different. Like my home state is UP. We have Bihar on the board, and for long in the North Belt, as the cow belt as we call it, we asked this question, by the way, in 2 rounds earlier. People still prefer the sarkari naukri. There is lack of sense of entrepreneurship in this entire northern belt. Naukri hai nahi, kahan se aayegi? There are no jobs. Job is a serious concern for 70%, as you said, people are saying.
So
it
that's
is a concern.
the Achilles heel.
So I think the government will have to some way unleash this, economic reforms or whatever, in order to promote the sense of entrepreneurship, not in the Western India, not in the South India, but in the North and the East of India. Without that,
I know.
it is not going ahead.
Unfortunately,
if I may,
10 seconds.
America.
You want to confess that you went for the Havan of Donald Trump?
No, I want to tell you that the moment India stands up, you will see America start backing down. You will see that, whether you see that immediately or after some time, because America also wants a good relations with India.
Okay, sure.
It's in their national interest. Ultimately, they too want to take on China. So, Trump may be penny wise. At least, hopefully, he won't be pound foolish.
Okay, let's leave it there. We've had a very, very interesting Mood of the Nation. And the good news is, whichever way you look at it, we've got another Mood of the Nation coming up tomorrow, where we look at other hot button issues, handling of Operation Sindoor, the allegations of vote chori, democratic reforms, and so much more. I want to thank all my guests for joining us, and for you, the viewers, do of course look at the latest India Today magazine, where you'll get a more detailed look at the Mood of the Nation. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Namaskar. Jai Hind. We'll have special guests joining us, and we will dissect every aspect of this See Voter Mood of the Nation poll. Joining us is Raj Chengappa, editorial director of India Today. He's the one who's bringing out the magazine that will be out there, and you'll see the cover in a moment. Also joining us, Yashwant Deshmukh of See Voter. He's the messenger, so if you want to shoot anyone and things have gone wrong, Yashwant is always ready. He's putting his numbers on the line. Maria Shakil, my colleague and senior editor, joins me. Welcome, Maria, to the Mood of the Nation for the first time. Gaurav Sawant, senior editor, and again, someone who tracks all the developments, especially in the last few months with Operation Sindoor, is with us. Preeti Chaudhary, also with us. Welcome. Also joining us, Amitabh Tiwari, someone who's been polling and giving weekly updates on his website. And we are joined by Tuhin Sinha, BJP's national spokesperson, and Sanjay Jha, who is someone who's been associated with the Congress party. So lots of voices, and we'll come to all the big numbers on the mood of the nation in a moment. But first, to give you a sense of the methodology of this Mood of the Nation survey by India Today. The survey date, July 1st to August 14th, 2025. So effectively, it's been a pretty comprehensive period. Respondents, 54,788. All Lok Sabha segments across all states have been covered. 1,52,000 additional interviews from C-voters, regular tracker data analyzed. 2,06,826 respondents, therefore, have been considered in all for this MOTN poll. So without further ado, let's cut the chase and bring you all the big numbers today. First, of course, that big number. What would happen if Lok Sabha elections were held here in August of 2025? The projected vote share first. If Lok Sabha polls were held today, NDA, as it stands today, 47% is what the MOTN poll predicts. India Alliance, 41%, others 12%. Significantly, no change at all from February 2025 when we did our last tracker. It's almost as if the numbers are frozen in time despite the turbulence around us. In alliance terms, the projected seat share now, remember 543 Lok Sabha seats, NDA at 324. 324, still a firm majority, but down 19 compared to February of 2025. India Alliance 208, well behind, but up 20 compared to February 2025 when we did our last Mood of the Nation. But the NDA is up compared to Lok Sabha when the actual elections were held last year, and the India Alliance is slightly down. Others 11, that's down 1. Take a look at the party-wise projected vote share if Lok Sabha polls are held today. BJP 41%, that's no change in the BJP's support. It is a shade higher compared to Lok Sabha last year, but the same as our MOTN in February. Congress 21%, up 1% compared to February 2025. Others 38%, down 1. How does all this translate into party-wise? And these are important numbers too. BJP on its own 260, that's short of the halfway mark, much like Lok Sabha last year, down 21 compared to February of 2025. Congress 97, that's up 19 compared to February 2025, but still not crossing the 100 mark. So the significant gap remains between party number 1 and 2. Others 186, that's +2. So the big number, if elections are held today, the NDA would still get a comfortable majority. When I look at those numbers, Raj Chengappa, it almost seems as if very little has changed. I mean, your cover story could virtually be the same as it was 6-7 months ago.
Hardly, Rajdeep. Let's not forget, as you mentioned earlier, it's been one of the most tumultuous 3-4 months that's been there. You've had Donald Trump come as president for the second time, and he's wrecker-in-chief. He's destroyed the global order as we know it. And of course, unfortunately, India's been at the receiving end. When we thought we were good friends with Trump, we have a tariff war that is ongoing with him. We've had a major war with India, with Pakistan, the 6th India-Pakistan war under Mr. Modi's watch. And what the results are showing here is that despite all this tumult, the belief is that the BJP, the NDA, and Prime Minister Modi definitely is the one that can take us through this crisis at the moment. There is not much confidence being given to the opposition, despite the fact that they have plenty to chew with and attack the government. They haven't made the kind of inroads they should. And I believe there are a lot of caveats as well. While it does look good for the NDA in some senses, the BJP is still not, if you recall last time, they had a full majority in our polls in February, though in the Lok Sabha they had 240 seats. They've increased to 260 if you look at the Lok Sabha, but down, as you said, 20 seats. And therefore, there's a message in that despite the fact that you had a war, where normally you would see a bump for the ruling party, as we saw in Balakot, as well as after Uri, that hasn't happened. But there is a larger message that they still believe that Prime Minister Modi and the BJP is the best bet at the moment to take the country through and navigate these turbulent times.
Okay, let's turn to the messenger, Yashwant Deshmukh. Because effectively, when I look at these numbers, it seems really that we are frozen in time. Even in vote share, more or less identical compared to 6 months, even though there's a seat drop, and you may want to explain why that's happening. But you get a sense that for all the turbulence around us, tariffs, Operation Sindoor, not much has changed in terms of voter preferences. Am I right or wrong?
You are right to a large extent. And no, I'm not saying that you are wrong, but I just like to do some more patch up into there, what is missing out there. One thing which should have been working in favor of the NDA alliance did not work. That is Operation Sindoor. I'm talking about electorally speaking. Don't take anything else in that. One thing which should not have worked in their favor was Trump and tariff. That has actually worked. So it's a kind of a weird situation. Just like Raj just mentioned, from the tracker data, I pulled out the numbers during the Balakot strike and like that, and I tried to compare the spike on two fronts. One, how big was the spike, Balakot versus Sindoor, and how long did it sustain? So the spike during the Balakot was almost about 15% in ratings and everything, and it sustained for almost about 4.5 months, while in the case of Operation Sindoor, the spike came only about 5%. It lasted hardly about 4.5 weeks. That's a big difference. During the Operation Sindoor tracker, we have discussed this. We have done a program here on India Today that after the ceasefire was announced, Rajdeep, there was a lot of disappointment among the public, and the bigger disappointment came from the masses who voted for the BJP or the Prime Minister's supporter. So the average BJP supporter was utterly disappointed with the way the ceasefires were abruptly called. They felt the task was not complete. Pakistan was not really given the right set of dose as they would have liked to.
But yet the same supporters are still voting as per your poll for Mr. Modi. Those who do not want Mr. Modi as Prime Minister or NDA are still voting for the Congress. There isn't much shift in voters. Am I right to say that or not?
Yeah, you are right. That's why it is important to understand that a BJP supporters or Modi supporters' disappointment doesn't mean that they are swinging and shifting lock, stock and barrel to the Congress and Rahul Gandhi's camp. That's a big difference. The baseline of the last 1 decade, Rajdeep, for any data person to understand is the difference of the baseline. The baseline of the Congress in the worst and whatever crisis in that it's about 20% nationally. The baseline of the BJP is now 40%. So it is a 1:2 kind of ratio in the baseline of these two parties. Similarly, when you talk about a 2-horse race between Modi and Rahul Gandhi, baseline of Rahul Gandhi is 25%, baseline
I'll
of
come
Modi
to
is
that.
at 50%.
We'll come to those numbers.
So what I'm simply trying to say,
we'll come to the Rahul Modi numbers.
organizationally speaking, the Congress, unless it improves the baseline, it will be very difficult to see the output change in terms of electoral context.
Okay, let's get more reactions. Opening remarks, your first points. Preeti, you want to go?
Well, Rajdeep, my first point is that wasn't your phone inundated with messages that when is the mood of the nation coming in? I just want to take a minute, Rajdeep, and tell our viewers. This is Mood of the Nation in its 46th year, and usually it happens right after the 15th of August, Independence Day. And Rajdeep, last 1 week, at least my phone has been inundated with messages that when is India Today conducting the Mood of the Nation? One quick point.
My phone isn't, because I don't think people believe the pollsters as much as they want this, but go ahead.
But just one quick point, because I want to juxtapose these numbers to Lok Sabha results as well, 2024. And if you actually look at the two alliances there, which is the NDA alliance and the India alliance, the gap has actually narrowed down by 1%. From 7%, what it was in 2024, it's narrowed down to about 6% this time. So is that status quo? Or, the gap coming down to 6% in just a year, is that significant?
What's
That's
your
what I want
sense?
to ask.
Is it status quoist or not? This poll is showing little has changed in the last 1 year.
But flip it around. Look at 324 on the screen where the NDA is, right? If you juxtapose this number to the numbers of the Lok Sabha, you can actually see a huge jump in seats. So while the gap might have come down between the NDA and the India alliance, you juxtapose the Lok Sabha numbers, which was, I think, 293 where the NDA alliance was, and now it's at 324. So that's jumped. So it's interesting. All I'm saying is there is a dichotomy here. The vote percentage gap has narrowed down, but the seats for the NDA.
We will try and get that explained by Yashwant in a moment, but yes, go ahead, Gaurav.
Look, I think Narendra Modi is well and truly in control, firmly in the saddle, and these numbers show that. Despite that wrecker-in-chief trying to put India down, India hasn't been put down. And that he's been able to rally the country around him, if this is what the mood of the nation does clearly indicate.
Who's wrecker-in-chief?
Wrecker-in-chief is Donald Trump. So wrecker-in-chief is Donald Trump.
The wrecker-in-chief changes. 1 year ago, it was supposedly Rahul Gandhi. Then it became General Asim Munir. Now it's Donald Trump. But go ahead, Gaurav.
So, and in all of that, so all the wreckers-in-chief, if they're trying to target Narendra Modi, they have all failed. Asim Munir failed. So narrative battle when it comes to Operation Sindoor, sure, the BJP or the government may have failed in the narrative battle, but on ground, Operation Sindoor has been the biggest response to Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror. And in the long run, perhaps, that is why, despite being in power for 11 years, despite all that's happening, the challenges from Donald Trump, Asim Munir's terror, economy, unemployment, everything, they still remain at 47%. And the Congress still remains at 41%. And the baseline difference is 20% and 40% between Modi and Rahul Gandhi.
So there is a wide gap. Maria, your first comments.
Rajdeep, the question that I want to understand now is that has nationalism perhaps peaked and reached its threshold? If there's no surge per se, in the last 6 months, there have been two events. We have been speaking about Operation Sindoor, but let's not forget that the same Modi government was expecting that there will be some kind of consolidation of the middle class post that announcement in the budget, which was essentially about the income tax cuts. So on the governance front, they were hoping that that will lead to some kind of surge. That is not reflecting right now. And similarly, what is not reflecting is that surge that we saw post Balakot and also post surgical strikes.
Yashwant, very quickly before I go to the other guests, just explain for us. The fact is, in your polls, the BJP is down 21 seats. But in terms of vote share, it's almost identical to 6 months ago. The Congress is up only 1% in terms of vote share. But in terms of seats, you've given them 19 seats more compared to last time. So explain this dichotomy of seats and vote percentage very quickly.
Yashwant to 24, Lok Sabha as well.
Very quickly, Rajdeep, that when you look at the NDA vote share, please remember the last time we took the poll, AIADMK was not really part of the NDA alliance. Now that number has been included in the NDA alliance. So obviously very marginal, but Tamil Nadu is a big state. And BJP on its own is a marginal player, has been there over there. AIADMK coming into is increasing the vote share. So that is why you are not looking much change in the NDA vote share, which actually without AIADMK has slightly dropped.
No, so why are the BJP seats going down?
Because without the AIADMK, the national vote share is actually going down slightly.
No, but the BJP's own vote share is almost identical.
That's fine.
So why are their seats going down?
Their seats are going down in particularly the states where they got a huge jump right after the assembly election, particularly in the case of Maharashtra. That's the biggest difference. Between Lok Sabha and the January MOTN, Maharashtra sweep contributed to the big jump of NDA numbers in the MOTN that was carried out in January, February. And between January, February and now, it is the same thing which has leveraged out. So Maharashtra numbers are down. Rajasthan numbers for Congress have gone up. BJP's number have come down from the January now. So these numbers have kind of... And by the way, UP remains a saga. UP still remains...
We'll come to specific states in a moment.
One quick question can I ask, Yashwant? That 1% increase that you show in the India alliance, is it because of the Congress or regional parties?
It's largely because of the Congress.
And what about the Rashtravad sentiment?
The Rashtravad sentiment, that was a wonderful point to actually analyze, that is, Maria, because I believe that Rashtravad sentiment is not something which will keep on going up and up and up. The problem with the Rashtravad sentiment is that at some point of time it goes down as well. But the way we have been tracking MOTN and the numbers, I feel the Indian politics and electoral scenario is now in a situation where a threshold or minimum level of Rashtravad sentiment is there, and that is going to remain there no matter who is coming to.
I think that's an important point. Just a minute. The threshold levels of the two major parties, I think, have been more or less sustained over MOTN now over an extended period of time. I think that's an important point to note. The Congress has never crossed, for example, in an MOTN in the last several years, 25%. And the BJP has never dipped below 35%. The one blip was during COVID 2.0, but beyond that, we haven't seen that major blip. Mr. Modi, in that sense, as the cover story suggests, is holding firm. Amitabh Tiwari, your first reactions.
Clearly, we have to analyze this in two aspects. One is when you compare this to the Lok Sabha elections, the NDA seems to have recovered, and that's largely because of the recoup of losses in Haryana and Maharashtra. However, when you compare this to your last MOTN, which was in February, the losses significantly would pertain, I would guess, to the loss of support amongst the middle class because of the ceasefire issue and the Trump tariffs. It seems that the core vote bloc of the BJP, which would otherwise, like in a Balakot scenario or earlier also during the Uri surgical strike, etc., which should have propelled BJP's seat share and perhaps even the vote share of the NDA in a post-Operation Sindoor scenario, which has been a grand success. Despite that, there seems to be a decline of some loss of seats. However, having said that, it clearly also shows that in these tumultuous times, still the country is backing the Prime Minister and the NDA to take the country through. Yashwantji was talking about the baseline numbers. If the BJP vote share is 41%, it means that the Modi factor vote is still 10% to 14%. So this 10% to 14% of the voters are non-hardcore ideological backers of the NDA or the BJP because of Modi. And despite the Operation Sindoor or the, let's say, the Trump tariffs and the ceasefire, they still do not seem to have the confidence in Rahul Gandhi to lead the country out of this time. So unless this 10% to 14% supporters of the NDA, largely because of Prime Minister Modi, shift from BJP or NDA to the India bloc, it is very, very difficult to have a change of guard at the center. And that brings us to the
I'll come to the states in a moment, Amitabh. We have a separate segment on the states. I'll come to that. But Sanjay Jha, that's a useful point to pick up on. You see, at the end of the day, you're also only as good or bad as your opponents are. What the polls are clearly showing is that the opposition, primarily the Congress, while making incremental gains, is still substantially behind the BJP. And therefore, even despite the possibility of anti-incumbency, people still don't have enough confidence in the opposition to actually switch their votes. Unless you get votes to switch, you're not going to get a government to change.
Rajdeep, good evening to you and to my fellow panelists. I want to make just 2 points, really. Number one, please remember that a lot of these polls, and maybe Yashwant can correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of these polls have an inherent bias because of the timing. Now, Mr. Modi is just 1 year plus in this government. Anybody who participates in the poll knows that willy-nilly this government ought to survive. I hope it doesn't, but it might survive till this entire 2029. So that to a great extent influences your view because you realize that you may participate in a poll without making any material impact of your opinion.
Been in power 11 years. You know, the mood of the nation has, over the last 11 years, consistently shown these numbers, barring, as I said, that poll in August of 2021 after COVID 2.0.
No, but I'll tell you, Razi, why you need to hear my second statement that juxtaposes the first. And I'll tell you why I'm not very convinced by these numbers, and that's my reasoning. Mr. Modi's entire success since 2014 has been built on his strong man imagery, right? Everyone sees him as a leader who takes decisive calls, even if it's a blunder like demonetization. He gets away with it because people see a virtue, even in a step that may be extremely infantile. Here is 3 points that I would like to put on the table for conversation. Look at 3 distinctive tailwinds that he's faced. Number one, what Maria pointed out. Operation Sindoor, the Pahalgam terror attack, I think has severely dented his image of that muscular hero, the hyper nationalistic narrative. I think that stands busted. I completely agree with what Maria said. I think that's peaked and is probably on the decline. The second also is going to be on the tariffs. I'm telling you, Rajdeep, as a student of economics, and I look at these numbers very closely, when the impact of these tariffs hit India progressively over the coming few weeks and months, and the job losses actually aggravate, you might see a great degree of resistance to Mr. Modi's ability to change it by talking of Swadeshi, etc. I think eventually people are hurting. And the third point is vote chori. I think on vote chori, Rahul Gandhi's campaign or the national imagination that it has caught is denting the governance record of this government absolutely irretrievably. I think all these will have consequences.
Particularly, we'll see how tariffs play out. But the truth of the matter is we only can go by the numbers that are there. The numbers are clearly showing that the Prime Minister is holding firm in terms relatively, certainly, in comparison to his opponents. Interestingly, you stayed away from discussing the state of the opposition. We'll come back to that. But Tuhin Sinha, you want to respond to these numbers? Do they give you a sense of satisfaction? Or, on the flip side, you're actually not doing as well in August of 2025 compared to 6 months ago. In that sense, the momentum is not with you.
Well, good evening, Rajdeep. Good evening, everybody. I would say these numbers are fairly positive for the BJP. The last few months have been challenging for the country. Even after the historic success of Operation Sindoor, we saw the opposition openly taking an anti-India line and calling a victory a surrender. We had those challenges. We had the tariff crisis. In spite of that, people seem to believe that the only leader who is equipped to deal with these challenges successfully is Prime Minister Modi. So I would much rather compare your findings with the 2024 elections. Compared to that, you are showing
not over 272. You see, there are two ways to look at it. Even in 2024, you got 240 seats. You're still at 260. You're not going beyond 271 on your own.
I'm saying your present polls are after a somewhat challenging phase. In the next 3.5 years, there will be easy phases when we will shoot up to 300. So, these 6 monthly MOTNs...
Mr. Tuhin Sinha, can I ask you one quick question? If one was to believe with what you're saying, that the opposition with their perception of how they handled the entire Operation Sindoor is being considered anti-national, it should show then, because the opposition has actually seen a 1% rise. While there seems to be a stagnation with the NDA.
No, Preeti, the point is for the first few days after the Operation Sindoor was halted, they managed to, sway the public and make them seem that we had given up our interest. But when the truth prevailed, your polls are pretty much on the same level that it was, in 6 months ago. So I don't see any significant loss for the BJP. Rather, now that we have successfully gotten over the challenging phase, things are only going to get better from here. And, like I said, 3.5 years is a very long time. If we have retained this in a challenging phase, we will shoot up from here in the better phases.
Okay, there could be challenging times, of course, up ahead, but there are two narratives, therefore, playing out. One narrative is Modi holding firm, which is your cover story. The other is Modi holding firm, but, and there is also the question of the opposition itself. You're only as good, as I said earlier, as your opposition is. People still have faith in Modi compared to the opposition. Ultimately, you compare the two. Is that what really the mood of the nation shows? That yes, there are concerns, but we're still not certain that the opposition is in a better position than Mr. Modi to be able to deliver.
I think it's just a little different from that. Yes, the opposition doesn't so far bring in the kind of confidence that can run the country, as Mr. Modi has been doing or the BJP has been doing. But also there are, let's put it this way, conditions apply to the support that has been given to Mr. Modi this time and the BJP. And those conditions, if you look at the economic side of it, they're deeply concerned with the economy and its progress. This worry is going to deepen as the tariff war escalates and you see a lot of joblessness happening or people losing businesses. And therefore, while they say, look, we still believe you're the best guy to handle this situation, the best leader to handle the situation, remember, these are the things. And therefore, if you see, there's no great bump that happens during Sindoor because people are
So
now
has he plateaued? You see, the flip side is, has Mr. Modi plateaued? Has the momentum that you had of the muscular strongman, of this nationalist strongman. You've got what you can. You're not getting any more out of that. You're going to need something extra. Is there a sense, Maria, you made a very good point about this whole nationalist drive. Post-Operation Sindoor, there was, unlike Balakot, where Mr. Modi's ratings just zoomed, as did that of the BJP. Now, even if Mr. Modi's ratings may not have dipped substantially, the BJP no longer is a dominant 300-plus party as per these numbers. Do you sense that there has been an arresting of the Modi momentum?
So, if you look at what happened in surgical strikes, it happens September 2016, UP elections happen in 2017, and we see the results. It's a landslide victory. Aerial or Balakot airstrikes happen in February 2019. Lok Sabha elections happen a few months later. It's a landslide again. I think while we look at that comparison that you're speaking about, that you are as good as the opposition, one question which could have emerged in this mood of the nation was that what do people think about an institution called the Election Commission? Because the first real
We'll
test...
come to all those. We've got all of that. Don't serve me. I'm too old. I'm too young. Go ahead.
The first real test of the vote chori or that narrative will be in Bihar. Because the sense that I get is that this is essentially about some kind of voter awareness campaign which is happening in Bihar by the opposition. They are moving around telling that please go and speak to your BLAs, ensure that your name is there. It may not be the reason on which the vote will be cast. So I'm making that distinction that this will be the real test. Bihar elections will decide whether, if the opposition can, that issue will lead to the vote.
Let's look at the Bihar numbers. Just a minute, Gaurav, I'll just get you and then you can respond to that. Let's look at the Bihar numbers. No, let's, in this segment, break down
nationalism.
Yes, Gaurav is upset that I've suggested that nationalism has peaked as a vote-catching narrative.
On the contrary, we have to see what happens after this Trump tariff impact takes effect. Yes, there will be job losses, but will there be mitigating factors? Because post-COVID, while Modi's numbers went down or BJP's numbers went down in mood of the nation, ultimately they were able to swing back. Ultimately, they were able to come back on top once again with the steps that they took. Now it remains to be seen whether they're able to take those reforms that they're talking about.
Let me challenge you on that.
Sure.
In 2021, in our mood of the nation, that was the first time Mr. Modi's numbers and that of the BJP declined substantially in the back of COVID 2.0. And by 2024,
yes,
when the Lok Sabha elections came, the BJP for the first time after a decade actually fell even below 250 seats on its own. They got 240. So there seemed to be in those months, eventually when actual elections took place, a decline. Now if these numbers hold, in the next 12 months, if the government doesn't get it right on a few issues, are we seeing a decline? Has the Modi BJP combined, and I use it Modi combined because there is a Modi vote out there, not just a BJP vote. Has it peaked or do you see a revival?
So do we see a revival post the election results of 2024 in Haryana and in Maharashtra and the RSS swinging in favor of the BJP and flipping things around for the BJP? So while there is BJP, there is Modi, there is also the RSS, and when they move in as a team, it becomes a very formidable combine, which will be tested once again in Bihar and in subsequent elections.
He is right in the way that is you see what we witnessed in Haryana and Maharashtra and even Jammu for that matter was that Modi, as the election campaigner in chief, took himself into the backseat.
Yes.
It was the organizational strength of the BJP and the RSS which pulled them out of the blues, So there are two aspects of this entire electoral game plan. One is that how much, the organizational muscle is coming in and how much is the Modi factor coming in. And I would just like to point out what Amitabh said was very important. All our serious number crunchers, CSDS, us and others, colleagues as well, they have estimated about 25 to 33% of the BJP universe as the pro-Modi person, which is not ideologically centered. It is just Modi. It's the Modi dividend.
Let me just make that clear. CSDS said in 2019, 1 in every 3 voters voted for the BJP because of Modi. By 2024, it had come to 1 in 4. So it actually declined a bit. So I'm just asking you,
that's fine.
You see, one of the things from these numbers is that the BJP is so far ahead that nothing can change.
I'm just coming to that point. Just give me 30 seconds. I will come to that point. Because even by a 1/4 or 1/3 number within the BJP, that is the swing vote, I would say. Because it's not ideologically inclined. If you remember, Rajdeep, the lowest possible F for the BJP in the last 20 years, even when they lost 2009 election, was 20%, right? Lowest possible F for the Congress even was around the same 20%, which means, ideologically speaking, these two national parties are positioned at 20-20 each. Whatever BJP is getting beyond 22-25% is Modi factor. Now, as long as Mr. Rahul Gandhi is going to center his campaign around him individually, that swing is not going to happen. That is why Chaukidar Chor hai backfired. That is precisely why a personal campaign against Mr. Modi, Mr. Prime Minister, is never useful to any of the
Samvidhan Khatre mein hai also worked. But Rajdeep, you know, somewhere down the line, if you look at when our last Mood of the Nation polls actually happened, it happened at the back of a win that was euphoric for the NDA. We were coming at the back of a 3-2 in elections, which clearly, where the massive states were concerned, went in the favor of the NDA. So there was that impetus, there was that push, because some of those elections, the NDA technically, as per poll data, as per a lot of conversations in studio, were not elections that were meant to be won by the NDA. Maharashtra, Haryana, Delhi, all of them came back, right? So the NDA won it. There was a deep sense of euphoria. You did the poll. The NDA clearly was on top, and we see that kind of exaggerated figures at that point.
There are two aspects to elections. One is narrative building, one is organization building. It's clear that the NDA or the BJP's organization remains at the moment so much formidably superior to that of the opposition. Therefore, when you actually come to election numbers, you always see wide gaps. Plus the Modi versus the rest factor. Mr. Modi still remains in most polls, including possibly this one, well ahead of his opponent. So keep that in mind. But let's come to Bihar. It's your home state, Maria Shakil. Let's look at the numbers and then I'll get my other guests also in. If projected vote share in Bihar that goes to the polls in November, 2024 Lok Sabha result. Keep in mind, Lok Sabha result, NDA had 47%. In our MOTN, NDA is going up to 50%. On the other hand, the India Alliance, which was 39% in the Lok Sabha, is now going up by 5% to 44%. So the others are getting squeezed out as per this. How does that translate into seats? Remember, this is Lok Sabha seats. We are not looking at Vidhan Sabha, but Lok Sabha, but it may give you some kind of a barometer. In the 2024 Lok Sabha results, the BJP plus JDU plus LJP had dominated the election, winning 29 out of 40. The RJD plus left and Congress had got 9. As of now, they remain at 9 and the NDA would be at 31. So the first test, if it is Bihar, is that the NDA, at least in electoral terms, Maria, in your home state, is holding rock solid vote adhikar yatra or no vote adhikar yatra.
Yes, because I feel that in a state which is so politically charged, so politically aware, because the biggest political movements have happened from Bihar. So vote adhikar yatra will essentially mean that each and every voter will go to the BLA, speak to their respective booth agents and ensure that their vote is there. Will it translate into vote? I don't think so at the moment. It may not be an issue on which vote will be cast. As far as Tejasvi and the Mahagathbandhan is concerned, till 2 months ago, when they were raising issues of administrative failure, when they were talking about that there is almost like a jungle raj, massive law and order failure on part of Nitish Kumar, that was generating curiosity and that could have been an issue on which voters would be interested, because if it is that fear of law and order collapse, this will not be an issue on which voters will say कि मैं इसको ले आता हूँ.
Just to add to what she said, just an important number, because 5 years back when we were running the trackers here on this channel, you remember in the last 6 weeks, we were consistently telling that main issue is unemployment. Yes. And when actually Tejasvi started picking on, hammering on unemployment, his numbers went up. Yeah. His numbers went up. So I agree with Maria on this one that we don't know yet, but sometimes I feel like that, is it diluting the main agenda? Main issue and main agenda of Tejasvi? I don't know.
Let me just bring in Amitabh Tiwari, because Amitabh Tiwari, much like the big national numbers, when I look at the Bihar numbers, again, relatively frozen in time, particularly compared to Lok Sabha of 2024, again in a state where caste alliances also remain rock solid. Do you therefore believe that, in a way, the the challenge for the opposition is to translate some of the narratives, whether anti-incumbency, whether Mehengai, whether unemployment, whether law and order, into actual votes. And that comes down to trust. Do I trust the opposition to do a better job than those in power?
Yeah, essentially, one caveat will be here that these are Lok Sabha numbers, and in the past we've seen that Bihar voted for Modi in Lok Sabha, but for the Mahagathbandhan when Nitish was aligning with Lalu in 2015. That said, the real issues which everybody is talking about are unemployment, price rise, and corruption, and that is when we were seeing in the trackers that the Mahagathbandhan was getting some sort of traction. I still believe that this SIR exercise is a deflection, and somehow the opposition has been caught in this trap, and for the past 1.5 months have been largely focusing on SIR. Now in tweets of Rahul Gandhi, if you see, he is also talking about unemployment, price rise, corruption along with SIR, because these are the issues. It's not only about trust. Unemployment is an issue. So it's not only in Bihar, it's across India. How will the India bloc solve this issue? I don't see any white paper or any communication or any strategy on this aspect reaching the youth of the country. There is a discontent amongst youth in Bihar, but how will the India bloc generate jobs? That is something.
So it comes back to that. Let me turn to another Bihari, therefore, Sanjay Jha. It comes down to, yes, there are narratives which the opposition can use to build some kind of a momentum, but either they choose the wrong narrative at times, or they don't have the organizational strength to convert some of these narratives into votes. You're going to have to swing votes. Elections are decided by swing voters, not by those who are committed to one party or the other.
But Rajdeep, can I just add to
it?
No,
just a minute, let him complete.
Go ahead, Sanjay.
You know, Rajdeep, in my opinion, I'll agree only partially with Maria here, because she says it's more like a voter awareness. It's not. This has become, in my opinion, an emotive subject during the entire campaign. Let me elaborate on that. The feeling amongst those, particularly the minorities and those from the backward classes who struggle with those elementary documentation that the EC mandated, they feel that there was an attempt to cheat them and deprive them of their right to vote. Now, I come from Bihar. I have not lived there now for many years. But let me tell you this. When I grew up, for the few years that I was there, at a young age, people discussed politics in dhabas and nukkars. And when you tell them that this one fundamental right that you have to get Modi to come and tell you with hands folded, please vote for me, if you're going to take that away from me, that's hurting that emotion, that the betrayal, or the fact that, is somebody here trying to take me for granted? And I think this will have a larger ramification in Bihar when the voting happens.
You have to wait. We have several more states to go through. We cannot ignore those states. Okay, there's a large gap still, though, between the two sides of about 6% as per the MOTN poll between NDA and India Alliance. But remember, from 39% in Lok Sabha results, and these are Lok Sabha, they are now up to 44%. And in a state election, as we saw in 2020, the Mahagathbandhan is able to punch possibly above its weight. To that extent, Bihar will be fascinating. If these numbers are there, it will be a tighter race than many have predicted, given, of course, the fact that the Nitish Kumar government has been in power for so many years. But it's not just Bihar. Over the next 9 months, there will be several states going to the polls. Let's quickly go through it, and then you can give us what the big takeaway from these states is. Let's start with the state of Tamil Nadu. Remember, Tamil Nadu is one of the biggest states that will go to the polls. This will be around March, April next year. As per this, when you look at the numbers from Tamil Nadu, it is clear that there is a huge advantage here at the moment for the India Alliance. Tamil Nadu still shows a substantial 11% edge even today to the India Alliance. And presumably, Yashwant, you're including AIADMK in the NDA at the moment. But Vijay, who many believe is the X factor, comes within others. That's 15%. Many believe Vijay is the one who's possibly dividing the anti-DMK vote. Am I correct, Yashwant?
He is more of a kind of a parking for the anti-incumbent vote. So invariably, he may not like to hear it this way, but he is ending up helping the DMK sweeping the state.
Okay, so that's the best news as of now
But
that's
Rajdeep,
coming for
Prashant
the India
Kishore could
Alliance.
have been that X factor in Bihar.
exactly.
Prashant
Jan
Kishore could have
Swaraj
been that X factor in
in
Bihar. Jan
Bihar.
Swaraj.
We
So,
still-
you know,
Swaraj
what
and-
Vijay is doing, possibly untested political force. We don't know what the ramifications of that is, but what Vijay is doing in Tamil Nadu, you can completely seem to suggest, because I'll go by what Yashwant said. See voter survey last time. Preferable chief ministerial candidate. See voter survey seems to be projecting Prashant Kishore right on top, and there's a steady rise in those numbers.
Yeah, but the fact
Not
is,
like
the
increasing.
fact is,
Tejasvi, no. Tejasvi is
but
number one,
Prashant
but a
Kishore
steady
could be
rise.
that
the fact is
A
the
steady rise.
others in Bihar are still in single digit. In Tamil Nadu, as per your poll, others are in double digit. So therefore, the others are a significant chunk in Tamil Nadu, not so much in Bihar. So even while Prashant Kishore may be high in popularity, as of now, as per these numbers, it's not necessarily translating into votes and seats.
For his party.
We'll wait and see.
Personal popularity is there.
Personal popularity may not necessarily translate into votes. Let's take a look at another key state that's going to the polls in the next few months. We have Kerala, which is also going to the polls, remember, at the same time, another of the southern bastion states. In Kerala, these are even better numbers in some way for the UPA-India alliance. And there's a story within a story here, Yashwant, because as per your polls, the UDF, that's the Congress-led alliance, is 41%, which is 16% more than the LDF, and the BJP is at 24%. This is all Lok Sabha. Now, can that change in a Vidhan Sabha where the left in particular has a very strong organization on the ground? Or looking at these numbers, will Shashi Tharoor perhaps hope, mera number kab aayega?
Unlikely, because historically speaking, BJP managed to poll only 50% or less than that, what they used to get into Lok Sabha election in Kerala. So if they are managing to poll about 24% in Kerala, their Vidhan Sabha tally could be around 12%, not beyond that.
So would you give the edge as of now to the UDF in Kerala?
Definitely. As far as the assembly election goes, yes. UDF has an edge over there. Having said that, any party which is, touching almost 25% vote in a state, Kerala cannot be now classified as a state where BJP is a non-entity, is out of condition. It's a huge, huge development. Coming to 24% for me, purely from the psephology perspective, it's a fascinating fight.
You know, these first three states, Raj, are also showing a story within a story. When I look at the national picture, it's very one-sided. The BJP still remains well ahead, NDA. The moment you go to states, every state, Bihar, at least the Mahagathbandhan is now not out of it. In Kerala and Tamil Nadu, they are well ahead in some ways. Does that show at state levels, the BJP Modi factor no longer dominates in the way that it used to even perhaps a decade ago? I know Tamil Nadu, Kerala, not the best examples, but by and large, India Alliance does better in states than it's doing at the center.
I would just have a word of caution on this, and I've always discussed this with Yashwant, is to project these onto state results would not be the right thing to do. And the second thing I'd just like to...
But if in general, actually, it works the other way around. The India Alliance tends to do better in states than it does in general elections.
And they do have strong leaders in the states as compared to... But Yashwant, I have a question. When looking at these state numbers, BJP has lost, you say, 19 seats, right, from what you had in February. And the Congress has gained 18 seats. But when you look at these state numbers, where are these seats that the BJP is losing? And where are the seats that the Congress is gaining?
The major two states where Congress and the BJP numbers have swung is Maharashtra and Rajasthan in this round of...
This is compared to February.
Compared to February. So whatever the losses of the BJP and the gains of Congress are coming are from the two states largely, Maharashtra and Rajasthan.
Okay.
And
Let's if I may, these are very difficult states for the BJP, and especially Kerala and Tamil Nadu. And what these numbers show is BJP trying to creep up, and especially in states like Kerala, if they're coming to 24%, which means they're trying to make inroads and focusing again on two aspects. One is security, the other is economy.
And Gaurav, there are always two electoral thresholds, let me remind you, 25% and 33% in first past the post system.
Yes.
Once you reach 25%, it starts reflecting in number of seats. And once you reach 33%, you become a really serious contender for the race to power.
Okay, there are two more states that will go to the polls early next year. One of them, West Bengal. Take a look at the West Bengal numbers now. This is what, remember again, is Lok Sabha. So all comparisons are in Lok Sabha. Look at the numbers. Trinamool Congress is 31. Remember they got 29 in the Lok Sabha. They're at 31. So they are remaining the dominant force. They're the Congress nil. We don't know whether there'll be a TMC Congress alliance. The BJP gaining in vote share, but not in seats. So Bengal remains that kind of bastion. As I said, if you're looking at these state elections, remember over the next 9 months, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, these are 3 states where you already have non-BJP governments in place. As of now, they seem to be holding their own. Bihar, edge to the NDA. There is one more state
Assam,
which goes to the polls in the next few months, and that is Assam. Let's take a look at Assam, because many believe that this is one of the more fascinating states in the country.
Rajdeep,
Very polarized campaign at the moment. NDA, as per the MOTN, is at 49%. That's an 8% edge over India Alliance. Remember, this is in Lok Sabha terms. How does this translate into seats? NDA has been in power in Assam, remember, for the last decade. In terms of seats, this is what it would look like as per MOTN: 11 to the NDA, 3 to the India Alliance. Yes, please.
You know, I want to just take a moment to reflect on the West Bengal numbers, because what you said, that this is one state that the BJP possibly hasn't been able to understand. You know, I feel currently that which is surprising, because BJP is superb in getting its political messaging right. But I do feel in the state of West Bengal, there is no clear political line and messaging that the BJP has taken now, post-2024. Why I say that is, at one end, you have a Samik Bhattacharya, who you make as your party president, who's seemingly a moderate voice, who's openly spoken where Muslims in West Bengal is concerned. But your leader of opposition continues to be Suvendu Adhikari, and the twain shall never meet. Therefore, there seems to be a fair amount of confusion in the people where, you know, the voters are concerned. And on the other hand, anti-incumbency is very high, but Mamata Banerjee always does a superb job of masking that with this ingrained regional, that she, makes that as a rallying point. So
let me just bring in Tuin Sinha on that. Tuin Sinha, we've looked at states. These are all important states going to power. BJP doing very well still at the center, well ahead of the opposition. When you go state by state, barring Assam, where you're still holding your own, in the other states, you're not being able to make the dents, whether it's a West Bengal, a Tamil Nadu, a Kerala, all of which also go to the polls. Is there a sense that the one difficulty for the BJP is to break regional bastions, whether it's a DMK-led bastion in Tamil Nadu, the left Congress duopoly in Kerala, or Mamata Banerjee in a Bengal? Is that still a challenge for you?
If you ask me, in Bengal, the anti-incumbency factor is at its highest. So while, we might still, be putting our act together with the new party president, in the months to come, you will see a significant dip for the TMC, because,
one thing you'll admit you haven't been able to crack, where you talk about national pride, nationalism hasn't been able to cut through where sub-regionalism in West Bengal is concerned. You tried it, the entire last election was exactly that. You failed. You're trying it this time to get a moderate voice in, but your language is all over the place.
We, like you mentioned, we also have a non-moderate voice in Suvendu, So, Suvendu Adhikari. So, it's a bit like Advani and Vajpayee in the 90s at the national level. But anyway, there's always a first time. And we do believe that while Mamata Banerjee succeeds with a lot of booth loot, with a lot of, violence towards the end, this time we are going to, be really close. But if you just allow me to speak about Bihar, because I didn't get a chance then, in Bihar, in the last few days, the frustration of Rahul Gandhi is already showing. The myth, the hallucination of vote chori is not working on the ground. Bihar is a place of erudite people. Maria may agree with me, Sanjay Jha may not agree, but, over there, you can't spin this fake narrative of vote chori when actually from 2014, when at the national level, the Congress vote share had dipped to 23%, it has gone up by over 80% in the last 10 years. So, was UPA doing vote chori of Congress party in 2014 when it was at its lowest? And look at the kind of abusive language which, Congress workers have used against Prime Minister's mother. Once again, they do it every time they realize that the narrative has failed. And this comes from the top. Rahul Gandhi yesterday, the kind of abusive language, and if you look at it in the last 10 years, he resorts to this every time he realizes that the core issues are not working, which is precisely the case this time.
I just have 2 minutes. I don't know whether Sanjay Jha would like to be called a non-erudite Bihari. I think that's the last way he wants to look at himself. But I have 30 seconds to each of you. The big picture at the end of this first hour of Mood of the Nation is there this dichotomy that when it comes to the center, faith in Modi and the BJP. When it comes to the states, people are exploring Amitabh Tiwari, state leaders as well. Regional parties actually are bigger challengers to the BJP, especially at the state level, than even the Congress party.
Clearly, regional parties which have strong leaders and which play to the BJP's strength, that is nationalism versus sub-nationalism, and who have implemented a model of development, be it Mamata model of development or a DMK model of development or a Pinari Vijayan model of development, they are able to tackle BJP well because they have leader as well as a model of development to talk about. And BJP lacks strong leaders there, without which they are unable to make inroads in these specific states.
Sanjay Jha, your final takeaway from this first hour of Mood of the Nation.
Yeah, Rajdeep, I have 2 points. Number one, you have entered into a political reality. It's not a narrative of a post-Modi universe in Indian politics. The RSS openly talked about it, and I think it's pretty evident that the conversation everywhere has already become that, you know, Modi is probably going to be replaced by somebody down the line. Who it's going to be? I think Mr. Modi's own, besides the other failures that we talked about, I think he's a diminishing brand for sure. The second point, I disagree with Yashwant Deshmukh when he says BJP's baseline is 40%. It's not. They were 32% in 2014, 37% in 2019, and 38.2% in 2019. Their base would be an average closer to around 35%. And if you lose 10 to 12% because of Modi, the BJP could be down to again 20-odd%. So,
yeah, but Mr. Modi is not going anywhere. You know, Mr. Modi is not going anywhere. That is, as per this poll, let's be very clear. Mr. Modi is not going anywhere. And that, when I see the smile on my friend Gaurav Sawant's face, you want to respond to what was said. He said, Sanjay Jha says, Modi is a diminishing figure. Without Modi, the BJP will be back to a 25% baseline.
So this 41% in the India Today cover, I have faith in India Today. It's completing 50 years this year. And this is this 46th Mood of the Nation.
So he's saying BJP minus Modi is going to be back to 25%.
So it is a combination that works. It is the BJP, the RSS and the Prime Minister. They work in tandem. And even in Bengal, they rose from 3 to 77. So it's not as if they don't have their act in place. It's incremental growth. Whether it rises higher or goes down, we'll only know in elections. Okay. But they're holding fort as much as, you know, that's trench warfare that's continuing, the war of the narratives.
So that's the cover story of Mr. Chengappa's India Today magazine. Remember, the messenger is Yashwant Deshmukh. If you disagree with the poll, shoot Yashwant Deshmukh. If you agree with it, give all the praise to Raj Chengappa.
We have been shot 46 times so far in 23 years.
You've been shot
still alive and thriving.
You're shot 46 times. I keep reminding myself of the MOTN in February of 2024. Yashwant perhaps remembers that. We predicted the BJP would get over 300. They got 240, but that happens. A poll is often a better benchmark than us just believing in a studio what's happening on the ground. The cover is Modi holds firm, but, and do look carefully at some of those buts because they also matter at election time. On that note, let's take a break. When we return, we'll turn to how are people viewing the performance of the government and that of the opposition. The Modi versus Rahul battle. Is that still?
Popularity, performance of the Prime Minister, August 2025. The latest figures say it's at 58%. So from a high of 72% in January 2023 to 63% in August 2023 to 61% in February 2024, it's 58% currently. Those who say his performance has been poor, that figure is at 26% in the month of August. The others are don't know, can't say. So all the challenges, Oppn high, and of course the narrative battle, as many spoke of, that India did not win despite winning on ground, and the Trump tariffs. Challenges plenty, popularity at 58%, Rajdeep.
Interesting, and I want to draw a tracker of this, Yashwant Deshmukh, and you can give us a quick first comment on that. In January 2023, the Prime Minister was rated good performance. That's 2023, 72%. That was a peak that he had reached. And today it is 58%. In August 2024, a year ago, it was 59%. What we are seeing, and this is a point we made earlier, has the Prime Minister's popularity plateaued? Yes, he's the BJP's biggest vote catcher still, but has his popularity plateaued? A quick answer.
Well, if you look at the graph, it seems like yes. I mean, that's the statistical answer of being plateaued when the graph
Or
is
actually come down a bit.
Or come down a bit. But electorally speaking, how long do you expect a man to continue trending at 50% plus after remaining 11 years in power? When was the last time you heard anything like that? Entire, not just in India, whichever state in India or surrounding countries or globally speaking. So I think attrition, electorally speaking, attrition of popularity, attrition of vote share is a very normal thing to happen. What is abnormal about this number is actually this degradation is not as sharp as globally or within India. The electoral history keeps on reminding us for other leaders and other states.
That's a good point. 11 years in power and still your popularity is reasonably high. 60 would suggest first class, at least that's the way I see it, but 58% also not bad. Mr. Modi's popularity still remains, it appears, much higher than his party. And even if there is creeping anti-incumbency, it's not so much against the individual Narendra Modi, it may be against states and individual leaders.
I think what Yashwant said is quite correct, in the sense that it's remarkable that an individual who's in his 12th year in power comes up with numbers that are above 50%. So let's give full credit to it. And there is a reason for that. If you look at the peaks that he had, that 72%, this comes, if I recall, just after COVID. First, he has a devastating fall in terms of, compared to his numbers, a drop in his popularity. And then he bounces right back and comes up with 72% because people think he's handled COVID finally well. There was a lot of criticism in the first phase of COVID, but after that he recovers. So what we are seeing now with Mr. Modi is not just a plateau, but the fact is that we are at crunch time. And some of that impact is being felt in terms of a very sobering reality that is happening in terms of the numbers going down, not only for Mr. Modi, percentage-wise from the highs that he had in February, but also for the BJP and the NDA. Those numbers are down because we are in a state of crisis. Now, what Mr. Modi does to handle, and let's look at it, in his track record has shown that every time there's been adversity, he comes out the better. So that's his, and whether he's going to break that track record is to be seen, but I think in the next couple of months, we will see that operating. He lost a bit, I felt, in terms of the narrative in Operation Sindoor, did well to strike back and strike deep into Pakistan, but then allowed that narrative to, or maybe got hijacked by Donald Trump in what he did by claiming that he had stopped the war. But he has this chance now, and you can see that Independence Day speech that he spoke about, which he realizes that it is crunch time for the economy, next generation reforms are there. If there's a person in crisis who's best equipped to handle this, it's Prime Minister Modi at the moment.
We've seen also...
And that's the results of the poll. That's why...
Yeah, sure. But we've seen this also between COVID 2.0 when his popularity dipped. And then by January 2023, it was back at a high at 72%. Anyone else? First remarks to what these numbers show. 58%, should that be seen as a very good rating or a clear plateauing of Prime Minister Modi's performance as Prime Minister?
You know, Morning Consult puts his popularity rating, global popularity rating at 75%. He's seen as the world's most popular leader, much higher than a Donald Trump or other world leaders. He's seen as someone who's really hands-on. So if you look at it, all the international awards that he gets for India, as he says, it just goes on to indicate that he's working non-stop for the nation.
You know, Rajdeep, all I'd say is I think 58% after 11 years is commendable. And why I say that is juxtapose it on the performance of his party and his government. He's got better figures there after 11 years. By the virtue of that fact, I think it's commendable. But there is this other train that one can look at. He's been the symbol of nationalism where it's come down to the voters. One of the biggest, I would think, adversity that would have made our Prime Minister look even bigger, larger than life, would have been Operation Sindoor. And I would reckon, if we go by the old figures of the Balakot airstrike, like Yashwantji has pointed out, there was a huge surge. We saw it on ground and we saw it in figures as well. That hasn't quite happened. So somewhere down the line, possibly the nationalism narrative was dented, A, by the opposition and Donald Trump.
Remember, BJP's vote percentage was around 40-41%. Prime Minister's performance as good as 58%. So Prime Minister tends to outperform his own party. But Maria, your first reaction?
Is hyper-nationalism or perhaps that Hindutva sentiment overshadowing the governance agenda? The government would want the governance to take center stage, but then there is this narrative around Operation Sindoor. If we were to look at those, in what has happened in the last 18 months, there is a consecration ceremony which happens in 2024 January. That leads to the peak. And
Ram
Mandir. And then there is Operation Sindoor, which is there. But in between all this is an important decision which is announced for the middle class, which is again the income tax cut, which perhaps should be discussed more, but it is not being done, but it is not reflecting as much. So, Rajdeep, the sense certainly is that there has to be a reworking of the communication strategy, going back to the governance, taking center stage, not as much as, as we are seeing in the context of Hindutva.
It's very interesting, the way the Prime Minister's popularity seems almost untouched by what the other criticisms of this government are, but performance of NDA, satisfied. As of August 2025, it is 52% are satisfied. That again comes down compared to 62% in February 2025. And in January 2023, when Mr. Modi's personal popularity had peaked, it was 67%. So if I look at it compared to February, which is how we track a poll, it is actually down 10%. Satisfaction rating with NDA is down 10%. On the other hand, those who are dissatisfied remain the same, 27%. So there's a solid block of those dissatisfied. There is, of course, a large number who are saying don't know or can't say. But this is the first real worrying point for the NDA, when 10% decline takes place over 6 months in terms of satisfaction. We then asked NDA government's biggest achievement. 17% still said Ram Temple, January 2024. Operation Sindoor, 12%. So unlike a Balakot, where there was a huge jump in support for the government, not so much this time. Maybe Trump's announcements of ceasefire have something to do with it. Development, Maria mentioned, governance is 10%. Biggest failure, unemployment 27%. And remember, this is where the tariff factor could kick in also over the next 4 months. It's a warning sign. Price rise 21%. And we've seen this consistently over our mood of the nation. These two issues remain troubling. Economic growth 7%. So when you look at these numbers clearly, Prime Minister's performance rated much higher than that of his government. And there's a sharp dip in satisfaction levels with the government. Sanju Verma is joining us. Sanjay Jha is still with us, as is Amitabh Tiwari. Let me get first reactions from you, Sanju Verma. As we showed earlier, if there were elections held today, NDA is comfortably ahead. Prime Minister's ratings remain relatively high. Satisfaction with NDA government is showing a 10% decline, which is one of the sharpest that we have seen in our MOTN polls over the last 3 years. Your first comments, ma'am.
My first comment is this, Rajdeep, that yes, while Prime Minister Narendra Modi's rating or popularity may have dipped from 72% in 2023 to 58% in 2025, and those who are satisfied with Prime Minister Modi / the BJP, that may have fallen from 67% in 2023 to 52% in 2025, as your poll suggests. One thing which cannot be disputed is this, that for a man to have been at the helm of affairs for 10 years in a row, is into his third term, is the only Prime Minister in the last 62 years to be elected for the third time in a row, and to still have a popularity rating of 58%. I say that is a black swan event. Show me one democratically elected leader who, after having been in power for more than 11 years as Prime Minister, and prior to that serving 3 terms as the Chief Minister of Gujarat, having been in office for more than 20 or 22 odd years still has a popularity rating of 58%. I challenge you, Rajdeep, to name just 3 such democratically elected leaders. Don't name fascist dictators.
I won't, ma'am, I won't take up the challenge. I'll ask Sanjay Jha to take up the challenge. Sanjay Jha, Sanju Verma is challenging you to name any other leader who has, after 11 years in power, still had a relatively decent popularity rating, even though she won't answer why is the satisfaction level with the NDA declining. But go ahead.
Yeah, on a lighter vein, Rajdeep, the answer to that is very straightforward. You have Mr. Vladimir Putin. Why you forget him? He's democratically elected and his popularity ratings are through the roof. Anyway, let's get on to the more serious aspect of this wonderful conversation on your program. If the Ram Temple and Operation Sindoor happen to be the 2 benchmarks on which this government gets maximum accolades, that itself, Rajdeep, is an exhibition or a manifestation of the fact that this government has survived over the last 10 years. It's won elections, I concede that point, on hyper-nationalism or ultra-nationalism and hardcore Hindutva. And as the results showed you in Uttar Pradesh, even these are probably now going to give lower political dividends. It happened in Faizabad. We saw what happened. And from the survey that you have showed so far, I think Operation Sindoor has probably hurt his national security image much more than if he was expecting to augment it. My second point is...
We have separate numbers on that. But I take your... No, 1 minute, ma'am. Sanju, I'll let you respond in a moment. But Amitabh, let Amitabh Tiwari give us his first reactions also to these numbers. It's a strange anomaly, Amitabh. It appears that the government's numbers in terms of satisfaction level are showing a decline. There is also a decline from the peak popularity of the Prime Minister. But as we saw in the previous hour, this government's electability still remains relatively high.
So this government's electability remains fairly high. It's largely because of Prime Minister's popularity rating is still high. 58% still is very high. And this is largely because of his ability to reinvent himself. Each year, you have a new tagline, a new theme, a new scheme for a different set of cohort. That is one thing. Second thing, and we get back to what we were discussing earlier, the popularity rating of the NDA has fallen by 10 percentage points. But this has not moved to the unsatisfied level. This is largely moving to the can't say or don't know or other options, correct? So you win elections or win narratives when people swing from one alliance to the other. There is a 10% decline in NDA's performance rating, but these set of voters do not see the confidence in the opposition to lure them or woo them to their side. And that is what is the missing link.
But Amitabh ji, for a moment, if you reflect, because that really shows the popularity, Rajdeep, of the Prime Minister here, if you reflect for a moment, February, if we hark back to our last Mood of the Nation survey, both the Prime Minister and the NDA performance was judged at an even keel, 62%, 62%. The drop for the Prime Minister has only been 4%, but the drop for the NDA has been a solid 10%. So clearly, somewhere down the line, you have the Prime Minister who's taking and still the poster boy of what the NDA alliance is.
Yeah, but it is not resulting in benefit for the opposition. And that perhaps reflects the trust deficit that the opposition still has to battle with, which will come to it. But before I come to you, Yashwant, Sanju Verma putting her finger up is a very dangerous thing, because if I don't sort of get her in, she will then go on Twitter and say Rajdeep was unfair to us. So quickly respond, ma'am. We have lots of guests, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
I'll take 45 seconds if you indulge me, and whatever my finger might, whatever my finger might denote, that apart, let me come to the moot point. I think Maria raised a very important issue. Governance-related narrative should be predominant. But I will tell one thing, disagreeing with her slightly. What are the top 10 achievements of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which no one seems to be dwelling on? The fact of the matter is, Vikas bhi, Astha bhi. 12 crore toilets under Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, 10 crore, gas cylinders given freely under Ujjwala scheme. You have 47 crore Ayushman Bharat cards given to people. You have 25 crore soil health cards given to farmers. You have something called 40,000 kilometers of railway electrification, which is done. You have abrogation of Article 370, which was discriminatory.